Regency history, and thank you for watching this live, or more likely you're watching the recorded version. If you've been watching previous lives, you know that I've been, or recorded versions of these lives, you know that I'm trying to do these daily and just trying to share a thought from my own Regency history, late Georgian research, just sharing a thought with you, really. It's designed for people who are interested in the same period of history that I am, like late Georgian and Regency, particularly Britain. And I've not done one of these for the last few days, so sorry if you've missed them. And the reason I haven't done them is because I've been unwell. So yeah, I had a bit of a cold, wasn't sure if it's COVID, maybe it was. Anyway, I didn't really feel up to it. So, but I'm back, and I'm back to doing these, and hopefully I will keep doing them for a little while yet. The last couple I've done on a Sunday, I've done from St Mary's Church, which is a Regency church in Weymouth, which we attend. And I may well do another one from St Mary's tomorrow because it's Sunday. So we'll see. Anyway, so what have I been looking at? Because I've been ill, but I've still been researching and writing. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm writing a guide to the Royal Navy. As I said before, it came out of the fact that my wife Rachel, who writes Regency romances, is setting some books in Weymouth, where we live, which is a coastal town. And she has some Royal Naval characters in there. So she started asking me questions about the Royal Navy in the time of, the Revolutionary Wars and the Napoleonic Wars. And the sort of time, the Hornblower and Nelson and all of that. So it's a popular time. There's lots of people who've written novels about it. There's lots of history about it. There's umpteen books out there about the Navy. But still, for someone who wasn't particularly versed in the Navy and wasn't sure where to start the resources, Rachel came to me to ask me questions because she knew I knew something about it. And I enjoyed researching that. So I'm putting together a little guide for her, and I'll make that available for other people as well. And so that's what I've been doing over the last few days, working hard on that, despite being ill. And just some little gems out there. Well, one of the pieces of research, one of the things I found, love looking at original sources, and one of the things I found was an account from a chap called Abraham Salami, or Salame, probably, I'm not sure the pronunciation. And in fact, I put an excerpt from that account into the last Regency History newsletter, which went out yesterday, Friday. It goes out every couple of weeks, and there's normally a history article in there, usually with lots of quotes from original sources. We're big fans of original sources. We like sharing the original sources. Anyway, so that was what was in yesterday's email. It went out. You can sign up to that through the Regency History website if you're interested. And there's little gems that I discovered from reading through his account. Now, his account is of the bombardment of Algiers. Now, Abraham Salame was actually a resident of Egypt. He'd grown up in Egypt. He was there when Napoleon invaded Egypt, and as part of his account, actually, of the bombardment of Algiers, he refers briefly to his youth, and he makes some references to the French being in Egypt when he was there as a child, aged about 10 or 11. Which is interesting little insights. I recently read a book of the accounts of French soldiers who were in Egypt at that time. So that there was some interesting tie in there. It was interesting to get a slightly different perspective, albeit quite brief. Anyway, what I'm talking about is the Navy and the bombardment of Algiers. And that was in 1816, which is when the Royal Navy and some Dutch ships attacked the coastal city of Algiers, modern-day Algeria, in an attempt to get about 1,000 white slaves freed. It was a successful attempt. And it's an unusual incident. It's a naval battle, bombardment of Algiers. It's unusual because it's where you've got a fleet of ships bombarding or fighting a coastal gun battery, basically. There were obviously coastal defences at Algiers, and so the two sides were busy blasting each other with cannon for several hours. And this chap, Abraham Salame, he was there as an interpreter, so he wasn't part of the military force, and so he went below decks for much of the fighting, but he's written an account about it, and it's fascinating. There's some little details there that I shared in the email that I'll just mention here. Things like, so as he was going down into the ship, having been told to go down to keep out the way of the fighting, he passed by some guns, some cannon that were firing. Now, part of the firing process for a Napoleonic cannon was that you shove the cannonball, the big round ball, down the cannon, but you also put after it some wadding, some material, some material, because that makes the shot more efficient when it gets fired. It's all to do with the gases that are released in the explosion, and by having wadding in there, it controls it makes the release of gases more controlled and helps the cannonball to fire faster and harder. And so he says he passed by a couple of these cannon, and one of the cannon, the guys had loaded it with the cannonball, but they hadn't got any wadding, and they were shouting out, "Wadding, wadding," presumably calling out to one of the boys who works in the ship to actually get some material. But nothing happened. They weren't supplied with wadding. So Abraham says these guys, the crew, basically got some knives out and they cut material out of their own jackets in order to create wadding to stuff down the cannons so they could fire them. Quite what they did next time around when they needed yet more wadding. There's presumably a limit to how much they could cut off their clothing. Anyway, so that was one little insight. That's just interesting. I love reading these original sources because you get little insights like that. And another one was that he made a comment after the battle that he was told that the wives of sailors on another ship spent the battle supplying their husbands with shot and powder. The women on board ship were busy being active as part of the gun crew, effectively making sure that the gun crew was supplied with the shot and the powder to keep firing. And that's one of those things. You read about the Navy and often they say, well, women weren't allowed aboard ships. And well, there were women aboard ships. There's plenty of first-hand accounts that talk about women aboard ships, often wives. Quite what conditions they lived in, goodness only knows, because they were pretty basic. These were obviously women who were living on board ship with their husbands in the crew. They weren't officers' wives. It would have been a really harsh life for them. But they were there and they were taking part in the battle. So there we are. That's my thoughts from today, from some of the latest research I've been doing into Regency and late Georgian history. So I'm going to wrap it up now, but thank you for watching. And as always, if you've got a question or a comment, please leave it. I turn live comments off because I don't want to get distracted by those when I'm doing these little videos. I may turn them on for some interactive sessions another time, but right now, these are just about doing these little videos live. If you're watching it, great. If you're watching it live, great, thank you. But if you're watching it on recording, equally great, thank you very much. And I hope to see you next time, or at least you'll see me. I mean, that's the way it works in reality, doesn't it? You see me, I don't get to see you, but I still appreciate your contributions and your likes and all the rest of it. So thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are.